And I suppose, well, I was kind of going to mention as well, I think more recently you've done some work around kind of Brexit and working class voters as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose, I don't know if you wanted to unpack that a little bit as well, because that's, again...
Well, that also grew out of the work in the valleys, you see, and some other community-oriented work that I did in a town that was close to, but not in the valleys. And, you know, in the way of these things, I got some more money from the ESRC to go and work with communities that I'd already worked with to talk about Brexit. And I got really fed up with the pathologization of what I saw as the pathologization of working class Brexit voters who appeared to be blamed for everything. And it made me very, very cross, because I knew what had happened to the lives of these people, you know, at least in South Wales. And I was really concerned about a kind of a reading of their voting patterns as indicating that they were taken in, or caught up in some fantasy of empire. I mean, really, please, these are people who'd become really impoverished. I mean, caught up in a fantasy of empire? I don't think so. And it sort of harked back to other work which had always pathologized working class families in relation to the media of one kind or another. You know, they're watching too much television in the 1950s, or they don't watch it critically, or they don't do this, or they don't do that, or they can't talk about it. So of course you get the same kind of arguments being brought up about social media and the use of social media. Well, the first thing to note is that many of these people were too poor to spend much time on social media, and didn't even have internet access except on a phone that they often couldn't afford to use. That's the first thing. The second thing was that there were very high, not very high, there were amongst people relatively high levels of illiteracy still.
Right.
People talk to each other.
Yeah.
But what came up in the discussions was jobs. It was jobs. It was jobs, more jobs. It was about it was about a sense of never being heard. Apparently being given things but they weren't the right things. You know, a road that connected Birmingham and Swansea, funded by the EU, but which was 20 years too late. The loss of town centres, the loss of amenities, the loss of anywhere to do any shopping, estates called the reservation by other inhabitants, you know, as no-go areas. I mean, it made me very upset. And you know, doing work, you know, discussions with more middle class people in these places, they talked about not going on holiday. And, you know, it was, you know, they weren't going to be able to go on holiday. But the working class people weren't talking about that. They were talking about their living, their everyday living.
Yeah.
They weren't interested in that because it wasn't relevant. And so, well, you can see it. It's kind of really got to me. And I thought I had to write up some of this work by looking at the approaches to affect that tended to have been utilised in relation to Brexit. So that's it, really.
Yeah, no, that's incredibly interesting, and can see what you mean there, and it's it is interesting to see how passionate you are as well about the subject. So that's really nice.
Well, but you know, Lois, I couldn't do any of it if I didn't feel passionate about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I did learn that many years ago, because I do remember somebody saying to me, I can't remember who the person was, but I'd published something, or oh yes, I tried to publish something in a developmental psychology journal and they didn't want it, so I published it somewhere else. And I remember this person saying to me, "You're so brave, you know, that you can go and do this, and you're not just gonna like stick with the mainstream." And I remember thinking, but I couldn't. I couldn't, because why would I be doing it?
Yeah.
It wouldn't make any sense to me. I don't think I could have lived with myself. Like if I was sort of Jobsworth, you know, and I because you could only do this work, you could only get published in X journal if you did this kind of work. And at that point, I realized I was never going to be that person.
Yeah.
I was never going to be it. If I couldn't publish it in X journal, well, you know, F ... I mean, I was not going to publish it there. I'd publish it somewhere else, because there would be people who would hopefully want to read it in the way I wanted to write it.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Yeah, that's a really great way of looking at it.
Yes, but it makes me a bit unusual as a feminist psychologist, I suppose, because a lot of the places I've published are not been in psychology.